All right. So we are going to talk about Lon today.
Okay,
And he's in your seventh grade science class.
that's correct.
So he moved, as you know, from Vietnam this past summer. And when I screened him in August, his score was 1.5, which is entering. It's a very low English proficiency. However, I think that it wasn't 100% accurate because I think he knows a lot more English than that indicated. And I think since August, he has also shown that he has picked up a lot more English. Would you agree? Or
I would absolutely agree. Before, he would typically do more gesturing versus speaking, English speaking, and now he actually is speaking versus gesturing more in my classroom than at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And it seems to have been just an easy transition for him. Like he's had the ability to be able to do it, but lacking the confidence to do it.
Yeah, and I also think that he is very fortunate that he's a social student because I think that built his confidence up, being able to hang out with other kids and really click in that way, built his confidence to speak.
I think it really did. I think a lot of the kids wanted to speak with him and wanted to befriend him and get to know him better. And he's so positive. I think the kids couldn't help but want to interact. So I think that helped boost him up.
Yeah. So one thing we've been talking about in my class is systemic functional linguistics, which is basically learning a second language and acquiring a second language with a purpose, not just drilling and learning English is as a functional. As like a grammatical thing. So like not just like this is nouns, these are verbs, this is how we order, grammar in a sentence and all of that. That's not functional. What is functional is learning English in a meaningful and purposeful way. And so that's why most of the time students are actually in the classrooms because we want them immersed in the language and in the content language. The academic language, which especially in science is more difficult. We know that like Lon has a strength in science. It clicks for him very easily. But the main purpose of immersion and using functional language is so that ELL students communicate both in their speaking and in their writing. So that's the focus, is to be able to do both meaningfully with intention.
I think I saw a really big impact that had for him actually when we had the snow and you were able to give meaning to something that is kind of a weird thing to think about, something that he hasn't seen before, phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
And you used the vocabulary and you used the context and you used meaning to help him learn about snow and water and relate it to a subject matter, which was science, which was really neat. So not only did he have the new phenomena experience and it was textile, he saw the science experience with the words and it had meaning to him because we had talked about that subject in science and it all kind of clicked for him.
Yes.
And then I started to see that kind of shift after that.
Good. That's awesome. And I think those experiences build the context for vocabulary to come out verbally in an oral way. And I know you do a whole lot of that in your class. You do a lot of textile fun stuff. Like I wouldn't even know if I would say science experiments because they're all just so much fun and engaging. So I think that's your starting point is spot on already with Lon. Like you have him engaged every single day because he is connecting to the material, because typically the kids start everything they learn about by doing something. Which is great. You're building a context. So we talk a lot in ELL about scaffolding, and it's sort of this cycle where you build a context like you do, or like I did with the snow. Like you build a meaningful experience, you build around what you're going to teach without actually teaching it necessarily initially. And then as a teacher, you model. And specifically in writing, that is where it is more difficult for EL students than speaking sometimes. Because they don't understand they don't know how to write with purpose. So by modeling and using writing frames or sentence structures, I know for science you probably do hypothesis with like if-then statements, that kind of stuff. That is what Lon needs for almost all pieces of writing, is those prompts that don't give him the content but put it into a context, so that he can kind of fill in the blanks of the actual meaningful material of the purpose. So they have the context built around with the experience, and then you model it. And then I watch you do this. So then usually the groups kind of join together, or partners or small groups work together to kind of construct some of that language into writing.
Yes.
And then within the cycle, the next thing we want them to be able to do is pull themselves out of a group and write on their own, which is always where it gets a little dicey. And I think that's where the sentence structures and the writing frames come in, because if he has that kind of set knowledge, he can apply whatever you're learning into those frames.
Right.
And then the next part of the cycle is, after independent construction of a piece of writing, linking it to more text. So, you do more hands-on things, or you do more to take it to the next step within the unit of connecting the ideas. The thing that is great about the scaffolding is that it's not only a cycle, so it can continuously be repeated, but you can kind of jump in at any point. You don't have to start at point A to get everything to the point where the student is independently writing with a purpose. And that's really the goal that we have. The other thing I wanted to suggest that I have seen you do before that I think would be really helpful in science is having word lists. Like, some of his worksheets have had like the word list and he just has to apply them. That's really helpful for Lon, because sometimes he can't remember the word or keep the word in his brain. But if it's there to look at, it's sort of like the sentence structures and writing frames. He can just plug them where he needs to.
Well, that makes more sense. As you know, we did the reverse autopsies, and it's interesting to see that what he thought, he understood some of what they were, but they're called something different in his language. So having that list there and describing what they're going to do,
yes,
I think is helpful to help him succeed in the body system, because he needs to understand what they're doing. Or like when we watch and take notes and do things like that, he can see it, but he has to also be able to have contextual vocabulary to connect it with.
Right.
So that's a great suggestion. So, at the beginning of units and things like that, just to give him the list of things that he's going to see pop up as we go through and do things, I think will help him be a more confident learner.
I agree. And I think that'll show in his writing and also in his speaking, because a word list is something that, he and I can sit and go over, and he'll have confidence saying those words. When you did do the reverse autopsy and there was all the organs, and he was trying to tell me about the organs, he was mispronouncing a whole lot of words, which is actually fine, because his meaning and his purpose was on point, and that was the goal. But I felt like if he knew those words ahead of time, he would have been able to tell me perfectly, not only meaning, but also pronunciation wise.
Right.
So something like that it'll impact his speaking as well as his writing.
Well, it's great for scaffolding for any classroom, whether you're an English language learner or a learner who struggles with vocabulary at all. For a learning purpose, is to have that list available to scaffold us. That's a great suggestion too for science, because sometimes we get so caught up in the moment and the activities that we forget about the words that could help fill in some more meaning. So that's awesome. Thank you.
No problem. So, you can always come to me if we have more, but I know Lon does a great job in your class and he loves it. So
I love having him there, because it was so fun. Like I said, hearing him speak out to another student in regards to an instruction over and over again, just to hear him choose to speak it instead of letting somebody else take control of the situation. He took a leadership role, which is a huge progress in my classroom. Not that he doesn't engage or do things, but to do a leadership thing and to tell somebody, this is what we need to do, this is what you should be doing now, and in English, is leaps and bounds from where we started at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
So
I've loved watching him grow this year so far. And he's a great kid. What a person, good personality. Just
he is
fun. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.